Welcome back in, everybody, to Birds 365, a Tuesday edition of Birds 365. Had some good conversation in hour one talking about Eagles opponents. Now I want to talk about the Eagles tight end, Dallas Goedert. Johnny Mac, there was a piece in the Inquirer about Dallas Goedert. He still feels like his best years are ahead of him. I don't know if that's true or not, but we will talk about it. We'll talk about what the expectations for him on this team are. I will put it in. I will read to you a little bit of that excerpt in the Inquirer. So thanks to them on the article. Goddard, and one thing to note is Goddard, who's 29 years old, he does not have any guaranteed money in 2025, Johnny Mac, the last of his 4-year, $57 million extension he signed in 21. So technically it would be Eagles. Easy for them to move on after this year. Goddard says, I feel really good. I'm not too worried about it. I love being in Philadelphia. I'm going to give them everything I've got and let the chips fall where they may fall. And he feels like his best. He said his best years came after 31, 32, 33. Goddard said, I still feel like the best years are ahead of me. What do you think of Dallas Goddard coming in this year? The contract situation, the age. Remember, he was 20. Zach Ertz was 28 when they drafted Dallas Goddard. So kind of a lot of people were expecting the Eagles to maybe make a draft pick for another tight end. They obviously opted to not do that. What do you think of Dallas Goddard coming into this year?
I think he's a very good player. And I think there's a little bit of a disappointment that he hasn't reached that sort of, I call it the Kelsey Kittle Andrews level. I think a lot of people thought maybe he would be in the conversation with that group as the best tight ends in football. And he probably plateaued a little bit. And maybe that has from remember, those guys are more of a focus on their particular offenses. Probably Kittle would be the best comparison because he's a good blocker. Dallas is a good blocker as well. So Dallas is a more well-rounded tight end than, say, Travis Kelce or somebody's more receiver than anything else. But and Kittle also has been playing with Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey. So he's got a lot of playmakers around him as well. And still is impactful. Not that Dallas isn't impactful, but hasn't taken that last step. But he's still a very good tight end. One of the best, as I said, two-way tight ends in football. One, if he wanted me to nitpick about something, a little bit too many drops that seem to be concentration lapses because he's got very good hands. So occasionally he'll drop one he shouldn't. And then the second part, which him and Avante are obviously very good friends. For people that don't know, they used to live together. They came in the same time. They used to be roommates until they both cashed in and made big money and got their own houses. But he plays so physically.
Yeah.
And it's almost like last year he hurt himself.
A stiff arm.
Yeah. Stiff arming and breaking his forearm. And he won that Kyle Brandt. Kyle Brandt's got that Angry Run Award. He won that twice. And he's very proud of that. And I'm like, sometimes you got to be a little bit smarter and say, all right, live to play. I don't have to run over everybody. So that's something I think, as he gets older, maybe he gets a little bit, maybe he learns from that, gets a little bit smarter. Got to stay on the field. And then the third part is, look, now they have AJ and Devontae. So the numbers are going to be somewhat limited. He's not going to catch 100 passes. Like maybe at one time that was a possibility when you thought about the upside, but not with those two guys here. So, he's a very good player. The last thing you should be worried about is the tight end on the Philadelphia Eagles. because he's still top 5 in football. When he's healthy. Now, you should worry about the depth. So when you talk about the contract, yeah, the Eagles will probably tweak it, as you mentioned. Once you get out of guaranteed money, players going to want guarantees moving forward. You'll probably see an extension. Remember, the Eagles don't have anything behind Dallas Goedert. Very poor depth.
Yeah. CJ Uzama coming in.
And CJ is, probably better than Jack Stoll, even his age, but he's 32, 33 years
Jack
old.
went to the Giants, right, John?
Yeah, Jack's on the Giants. CJ's 31, so he's going to be 32 in January. So he's older. He's a good player in Cincinnati in their run to their Super Bowl. Very good season. Signed a big money deal with the Jets, didn't live up to it. More of a blocking tight end. So I'd like that from a fit standpoint as a backup, because Dallas has always been their best blocking tight end since he got here. And now, because you have somebody who can really hold up, and Jack was okay, but this guy's top tier, depending how much he's got left in the tank. So that enables you to play Dallas Goedert as a flex receiver even more if you want to. And then you have Grant Calcaterra and Albert Guegbanon. EJ Jenkins showed some things in camp, but not a lot of depth at tight end. So if you're thinking the Eagles are moving on from Dallas Goedert because he's got no guaranteed money, I think the opposite. They're going to work out an extension.
Yeah, I think they will too.
And maybe they draft somebody down the road, but they don't have it right now. So Dallas is the guy.
You think Kellen Moore's offense is going to, maybe get the – I agree. Look, I mean, I get it. AJ and Devontae, it's already hard to get him the type of reps or the type of targets that somebody of his caliber might be expecting. But I do think there's going to be an increase this year with Kellen Moore. I think Kellen Moore is a guy that likes to spread the ball around a little more and at least give Jalen Hurts the option to have a couple more targets toward Dallas Goedert, toward that middle of the field. You think Kellen Moore's offense will be beneficial for Dallas Goedert?
Well, I know Dallas has said it a couple times.
He
said it with us. He said it in that Inquirer piece he said from Jeff Nyberg, my buddy Jeff, hat tip to him. He said it a couple times, the quick passing game. I think he's excited by that. I'm not excited by that.
I know you're not.
He is, because he thinks he's getting the football more. Yeah, we just talked about it with maybe you remember the commenter about Baltimore building their offense around Lamar Jackson, and that's the right way to do it. Remains to be seen. Maybe the Eagles do it, but I hear a lot of lip service about going in different directions that I don't like. And that's one of them.
I'll tell you what.
I don't want him getting rid of the football quickly over the middle to Dallas Goedert for 5 yards, and then maybe I don't want that. I don't think that's
Jalen Hurts at his best. I get it. I get what you're saying, but even just drawing to that comparison right there, Mark Andrews gets a lot of targets from Lamar Jackson. Now I know, they don't have the receivers that the Philadelphia Eagles do. I'm not saying that, but I do think it wouldn't be a bad thing. I think it would help Jalen Hurts to be able to find some of those guys more. And I do understand what you're saying when you're like, when you have AJ and Devontae, man, the offense is going through them. I don't really care. You got guys like that, but I think Dallas is that good too, or at least close to it. And I'd like to see maybe him be more involved in this game plan a little more. Maybe not 5 to 5,
Well, when people make the comp between Lamar and Jalen Hurts, they do it for obvious reasons, but they also do it probably without, peeling the onion back a little bit. Seeing Lamar early in his career, and when he was here for joint practices, I remember he always threw it to the tight end. Always. He was just comfortable doing it.
Yeah, right. That's been his comfort zone forever.
and they had like 3 tight ends at the time, and he just always went to the tight ends, and that's another example of the Ravens building around what he does best. I think people assume, oh, he's the mobile quarterback. Jalen Hurts is the mobile quarterback. So they're the same. Jalen likes throwing the ball downfield, likes throwing it outside the numbers, doesn't like or isn't as comfortable throwing it in the middle of the field. So from that standpoint, they're not the same. And Baltimore built around what Lamar does best by bringing in somebody like Mark Andrews and some of the other tight ends they've had over the years, because they always have good tight ends. And, you know, the Eagles are talking about, at least, again, lip service wise, it hasn't come to fruition yet, about turning into Jalen, again, Brock Purdy. Get the football out of your hands. Really?
Yeah, right.
Really? Is that where we're going with this?
Well, is there a scenario that exists that accentuates Jalen Hurts' talent without turning him into Brock Purdy, and also means that Dallas Goedert gets the ball more?
Find it. I don't know if he's ever going to be comfortable with the middle of the field. At some point, it's great to keep a ball. You can get better at it. You can add to it incrementally, and improve that way.
Harm than good than to force it.
But we're talking about 51 starts plus 5 in the playoffs, 56 NFL starts. Is he going to get comfortable in 57? That's a large sample size. So, not that you can't get better. That's what I said about dumping the football off, about quick throws, about hot routes. Not that you can do it, you can't get better at it. But to assume, oh, you can't play, that's what made you successful over those 56 starts or whatever, and you won, at a 667 winning percentage. Oh, stop doing that and do this? I don't like that. You know that. I've said that from day one.
You've been very consistent on that. Let's get our buddy Dank Bird Gang. Dank, appreciate you, brother. $5 super chat. We appreciate it. Any super chat goes a long way in helping the channel. So we appreciate all of you guys for supporting the channel. It really does go a long way, and I appreciate it more than you know. Dank Bird Gang says AJ has averaged 97 receptions, 1,476 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Smith has averaged 88 receptions, 1,131 yards, and 7 touchdowns since becoming teammates. Who's throwing them the ball? Good point, Dank. I mean, Jalen's obviously done a good job. I don't think any of us haven't given him credit for that. But
did you not hear me say he's comfortable throwing the ball outside the numbers? He's not comfortable throwing it inside. Sometimes I think people don't listen to what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I just said he's more comfortable throwing the ball outside the numbers. I just said that.
Yeah, and that's why the receivers' numbers look so damn good. I mean, we're talking about Goedert here, so I get it, Dang. I get what you're saying. Jalen's good, but that's a separate point from what we're talking about with the middle of the field and stuff. But I do appreciate the super chat, brother. Thank you, man, for dropping that in there. We appreciate it, John. Here's a good question from my buddy Shonuff. I love Shonuff. He is another great chatter in here, but he's pushing back on one of your things, and I want to let you answer it. When you're talking about the short throws, he says, so let Hurts run around and wait for big plays to open up snap after snap. Is that the goal?
It's not the goal. Off schedule is never the goal. Off schedule is never the plan. But I love it when fans say, all fans enjoy. For some reason, the Olamide Zaccheaus touchdown comes out to me. It comes to fruition from last year. If everybody remembers Jalen extending the play, going left, throwing the football in the end zone, one of the few big plays Olamide made. Everybody loves that, right? Well, If you're just boring into his head, all right, just dump it off to the running back and you get 4 yards. I don't think you're going to be happy with that. It's admittedly a tightrope, and what side do you want to be on? Demarcation line would be the better description. I believe in taking advantage of the strengths of your quarterback. If I have Brock Purdy, yeah, I want to dump the ball off a bunch. I want the ball out of his hands quickly, a bunch. If I have Jalen Hurts, I'm going to go in a different direction. As the previous commenter just said, he excels. Look at A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith's numbers. He excels getting the football down the field. I want to take advantage of that. That's what he's comfortable. Look at his hot charts where he throws the football since he's been in the league. He's not comfortable throwing the football over the middle of the field. Do I want to pound the square peg in a round hole? I don't. Can you get better at those things? Of course, you can always improve, and that's what I hope Kellen Moore is trying to do. Slightly improve in areas of weakness, take advantage of areas of strength. I think it's pretty simple.
Because I think I do. On one hand, I agree completely with what you're saying, and basically, my whole point is that I do agree, but I don't think adding some of that, some of the dink and dunk, like I think some of that. I'm not saying to become Brock Purdy, but I think some of it in moments, in certain circumstances, will help Jalen in the long run. Will help the offense in the long run, where you can, add some of those elements to be able to keep things fresh all the time. And I maybe I'm wrong. We'll see how it plays out. But I'm not saying turn him into Brock Purdy. But if you rise up all the the averages of what Jalen Hurts can do, I think you have a better quarterback overall. So,
well, of course, you always want to improve. That's not there. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. You always want to improve on things you're not comfortable with, things you don't do well. But you don't wake up one day and have tremendous success doing one thing and say, all right, I have less success doing this, which, by the way, isn't as important as well. So I'm going to hyper focus on that. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Dang followed up said, I know that I'm adding to your point. It was more in general. So he was just pointing out how good the receivers have been in the offense. Dank, again, we appreciate the super chat, brother. Thank you for putting that out there. Joe Whipp is another guy who comments a lot. Ignoring the middle of the field makes it far easier to defend, which leads to the offense grinding to a halt. I think he meant to say there. I kind of agree with that. That's where I'd like them to work some of the other stuff in. I don't want to do it to the point where you're changing Jalen Hurts, but I want to do it in a way that helps Jalen Hurts and helps out the offense. I don't know what that happy medium looks like. That's why they're paying Kellen Moore the big bucks and not me. But that's how I view it. I don't know about you, Johnny Mac. What do you think?
Well, I don't know if you can describe a top 10 offense as grinding to a halt. I think everybody's hyper focused on the collapse, and I get why, because it was ugly and it was awful and everything, any adjective you want to throw on it. But I also think you're leaning on the small sample size as versus the larger sample size when you have an all-pro receiver who's at 1,496 yards and 1,456 yards, and you have a wide receiver too who's over 1,000 yards, and you have Dallas Goedert effectively catching the football as well. And you're hyper focusing on a small stretch, which again I get, but you can't overreact to it. I'm not going to say, oh, the league figured out Jalen Hurts. Like there's that whole Nick Bosa quote when we showed everybody how to stop the Eagles, and it happened to be the stop of the Eagles. So a lot of people gave it more credence than it probably deserved, because Nick probably doesn't know what the hell he did do. He's just rushing the passer. It's not like he's, intricate game planning of what went on. They just out talented the Eagles. It beat the brakes off the Eagles. And if anything, they affected their competence. They didn't write a blueprint to anything. But, from the hyper focus, I'm not changing Jalen Hurts. Evolve, yes. Take advantage of what you have. Don't try to turn him into something he's not. That's all I'm saying. Boil it down to that. Use the Brock Purdy. Don't turn him into freaking. Why would you want? I want him under center. I hear this all the time. Why? Why? Why do you want the football out of his hands as quickly as possible? Have you not enjoyed the extending of the plays? Have you not enjoyed the 667 winning percentage? Have you not enjoyed the Super Bowl run? Why? We went through this with Donovan McNabb in Philadelphia. And Donovan probably hurt himself by trying to prove it to people. Different era where people weren't as accepting of a different style of quarterback play. Now they are. Now they are accepting of it. So take advantage of it, is all I'm trying to say. Don't stymie it. That's the worst thing you can do.
No, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I think everybody who, understands football knows that it makes sense. But I do think the other context they're talking about is valid, in terms of evolving and making him doing things that maybe right now he's not comfortable with, but it would benefit him as a quarterback.
Do it in practice all you want. And then you're playing the games, practice is about getting better. Not about winning, not about plays, not about touchdowns. Sorry, Elliott, not about completion percentage. It's not what practice is about. Practice is about getting better as a player. Do it all you want in practice, but when the games start, take advantage of what the quarterback does best.
Well said, Johnny Mac. Let's get to our next commercial break. Coming up next, we have Bill Colarulo. Big Bill from 97.5 The Fanatic will join us next. Excited to talk to Bill. We had a shortened segment last week, but still good stuff from Bill. He's back. He's honeymoon fresh. It's now in the rearview mirror for Bill. He's getting ready for the season. So stay tuned, everybody. Like the show on your way, and stay tuned for Birds 365. We'll have Bill Colarulo coming up next.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.